Question 1. What is EventEmitter in Node.js? The EventEmitter is a class that facilitates communication and interaction between objects in Node.js. The EventEmitter class can be used to create and handle custom events. EventEmitter is at the core of Node asynchronous event-driven architecture. Many of Node's built-in modules inherit from EventEmitter, including prominent frameworks like Express.js. An emitter object basically has two main features: emitting name events, registering and unregistering listener functions. For example, EventEmitter can be used for registering for the event to be fired only one time using once. Please look at the example below. Question 2. How the event loop works in Node.js. The event loop allows Node.js to perform non-blocking I/O operations despite the fact that JavaScript is single-threaded. It is done by offloading operations to the system kernel whenever possible. Node.js is a single-threaded application, but it can support concurrency via the concept of event and callbacks. Every API of Node.js is asynchronous and being single-threaded. They use async function calls to maintain concurrency. Node uses observer pattern. Node thread keeps an event loop, and whenever a task gets completed, it fires the corresponding event which signals the event listener function to execute. Features of event loop. Event loop is an endless loop, which waits for tasks, executes them, and then sleeps until it receives more tasks. The event loop executes tasks from the event queue only when the call stack is empty, that is, there is no ongoing task. The event loop allows us to use callbacks and promises. The event loop executes the tasks starting from the oldest first. Question 3. What is the difference between process.nextTick and setImmediate? The process.nextTick method adds the callback function to the start of the next event queue. It is to be noted that at the start of the program, process.nextTick method is called for the first time before the event loop is processed. The setImmediate DOM method is used to execute a function right after the current event loop finishes. Its callback function is placed in the check phase of the next event queue. Please look at the example below. Question 4. What is callback function in Node.js? A callback is a function which is called when a task is completed, thus helps in preventing any kind of blocking, and a callback function allows other code to run in the meantime. Callback is called when tasks get completed, and is asynchronous equivalent for a function. Using callback concept, Node.js can process a large number of requests without waiting for any function to return the result, which makes Node.js highly scalable. Hit the like button and subscribe for more useful questions and answers for your job interview preparation. Question 5. What is the difference between events and callbacks? 1. Events. Node.js Events module which emits named events that can cause corresponding functions or callbacks to be called. Functions, callbacks, listen or subscribe to a particular event to occur, and when that event triggers, all the callbacks subscribed to that event are fired one by one in order to which they were registered. All objects that emit events are instances of the EventEmitter class. The event can be emitted or listened to an event with the help of EventEmitter. Please look at the example below. 2. Callbacks. A callback function is a function passed into another function as an argument, which is then invoked inside the outer function to complete some kind of routine or action. Callback functions are called when an asynchronous function returns its result, whereas event handling works on the observer pattern. The functions that listen to events act as observers. Whenever an event gets fired, its listener function starts executing. Node.js has multiple inbuilt events available through Events module and EventEmitter class, which are used to bind events and event listeners. Please look at the example below. Question 6. What is an error-first callback? The pattern used across all the asynchronous methods in Node.js is called error-first callback. Any asynchronous method expects one of the arguments to be a callback. The full callback argument list depends on the caller method, but the first argument is always an error object or null. When we go for the asynchronous method, an exception thrown during function execution cannot be detected in a try-catch statement. The event happens after the JavaScript engine leaves the try block. In the following example, if any exception is thrown during the reading of the file, it lands on the callback function as the first and mandatory parameter. Please look at the example below. Question 7. What is the callback hell in Node.js? The callback hell contains complex nested callbacks. Here, every callback takes an argument that is a result of the previous callbacks. In this way, the code structure looks like a pyramid, making it difficult to read and maintain. Also, if there is an error in one function, then all other functions get affected. An asynchronous function is one where some external activity must complete before a result can be processed. It is asynchronous, in the sense that there is an unpredictable amount of time before a result becomes available. Such functions require a callback function to handle errors and process the result. Please look at the example below. Question 8. How to avoid callback hell in Node.js? There are several ways to avoid callback hell in Node.js. Managing callbacks using async.js. Async is a really powerful NPM module for managing asynchronous nature of JavaScript. Along with Nodejs, it also works for JavaScript written for browsers. Async provides lots of powerful utilities to work with asynchronous processes under different scenarios. Managing callbacks hell using promises. Promises are alternative to callbacks while dealing with asynchronous code. Promises return the value of the result or an error exception. The core of the promises is the then function, which waits for the promise object to be returned. The then function takes two optional functions as arguments, and depending on the state of the promise, only one will ever be called. The first function is called when the promise if fulfilled, a successful result. The second function is called when the promise is rejected. Using async await. Async await makes asynchronous code look like it's synchronous. This has only been possible because of the reintroduction of promises into Node.js. Async await only works with functions that return a promise. Question 9. What is typically the first argument passed to a callback handler? The first parameter of the callback is the error value. If the function hits an error, then they typically call the callback, with the first parameter being an error object. Question 10. What are the timing features of Nodejs? The timers module in Nodejs contains functions that execute code after a set period of time. Timers do not need to be imported via the require method, since all the methods are available globally to emulate the browser JavaScript API. Some of the functions provided in this module are 1. setTimeout. This function schedules code execution after the assigned amount of time, in milliseconds. Only after the timeout has occurred, the code will be executed. This method returns an ID that can be used in the clearTimeout method. Here's the syntax of the setTimeout method. 2. setImmediate. The setImmediate method executes the code at the end of the current event loop cycle. The function passed in the setImmediate argument is a function that will be executed in the next iteration of the event loop. Here's the syntax of the setImmediate method. 3. setInterval. The setInterval method executes the code after the specified interval. The function is executed multiple times after the interval has passed. The function will keep on calling until the process is stopped externally or using code after specified time period. The clearInterval method can be used to prevent the function from running. Here's the syntax of the setInterval method.